Well, good afternoon. I'm Mike Snelly. I'm an extension specialist and professor in the Department of Horticultural Landscape Architecture here at Oklahoma State University, and I'll serve as co-moderator in today's session. So welcome back to the Shackelford Lecture Series. If by chance this is your first time tuning in over the last almost 2 years now, keep in mind that our speakers will absolutely answer each and every one of your questions at the end of their presentation. So if you'll jump on the chat feature as Professor Luo's talk ensues, we can look at those questions and certainly have her address each and every one of them towards the end of her lecture. Our speaker also, she has the prerogative to take a break if she so chooses at her leisure. And if we do take a break, we won't be answering questions at that time. We'll just simply all walk away for 5 or 10 minutes max and get back on Zoom and go ahead and conclude her talk. And so I'd be remiss before I forget if I don't thank the late Charles Shackelford and Linda Shackelford, former co-owners of TLC Oklahoma City, for their ongoing support of the Shackelford Lecture Series. Charles and Linda had a thriving garden center, multiple locations in the greater Oklahoma City metropolitan area for well over 30 years, and often enjoyed being in the top 100 retailers in the United States. And if you tuned in before, I've mentioned that's a big deal when you consider just how large our country is. Yet right here in Oklahoma, we've had actually multiple people, but today I want to recognize Charles and Linda Shackelford for being in that top 100 ranking for many, many consecutive years. So congratulations. And again, thanks to the Shackelfords. Let me go ahead and do a brief introduction of today's speaker. And you can look at her bio in its entirety on her website, but excited to talk about and introduce Professor Qing Luo. Qing is a licensed landscape architect and currently an associate professor and state extension specialist of landscape architecture at OSU. And before we were fortunate enough to have Qing join our faculty, she held several positions of various architectural design businesses throughout the country, specifically though Boston, Massachusetts, and Beijing, China. Her projects have been featured throughout the world, including right here in the United States, South America, the Middle East, Europe, and China. Her work has been recognized with many international, national, and regional design awards. And I can remember, I was just thinking as I was looking over my notes, what I wanted to say. I was on the search committee for Professor Luo, and we first had her on a Skype session. And, you know, when you meet people that have talent, it just hits you. You just know immediately that they're a great match. So I think we all knew as a search committee on that very Skype. And then when we physically flew her in for her interview, that she would be a great fit. And that has just really been true for the last many, many years. So we're just thrilled to have Qing being our faculty. And furthermore, it's been a dream come true for me because before Professor Luo, I really never had a colleague with a formal FTE or part of their salary could be justified through an extension role. So we actually have now a landscape architecture with a partial extension appointment. So that's just been fantastic, not only for us as faculty members, but for industry and for ultimately consumers in the state of Oklahoma. Qing is going to lecture today on trending phenomena in sustainable park development. And I think without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the floor over to Professor Qing Luo. Qing, the floor is yours, and welcome.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for the very glamorous introduction. I hope I deserve that introduction. I'm going to share screen right now, and please let me know if you can see my full screen over here. Are you able to see it?
Yes, I can see it, Qing.
Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to make the audio volume a little higher so that can hear each other a little better. All right, so it's a great pleasure, Mike. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this webinar series. So again, the topic I'm going to talk about today is about trending phenomena in sustainable park development. I have several topics that I would like to go over, and my goal is to finish within 1 hour, if not sooner. So let's begin. And these are the 6 topics I would like to talk about today. One thing is sustainability and parks as infrastructure. And I'm going to talk about parks everywhere. So I'll reveal what that means. And we're going to talk about how health is related or impacted by parks, and what technology is doing to park design and park development. And we're going to talk about some park program changing, such as decline in youth outdoor activities, and how parks are dealing with that and encouraging more outdoor activities. And I'm going to touch on some new energy. I'm a designer, as Mike introduced. I'm not an expert in every single topic over here, but these topics are absolutely fascinating to me. And as a design profession, I'm studying, I'm researching, just looking over these topics, studying these topics. And I know that a design practice need to catch up with all of these trends. All right. And first, let's talk about sustainability. So sustainability basically means that we are utilizing resources so that we can continue to live on the earth without compromising the future resources. That'll make our future generations have no resource to use when they the major population in the world. So UN, the United Nations, have created 17 sustainable goals. And these goals were built on decades of work by many countries together, and also UN, of course, and especially the UN Department of Economic Social Affairs. And these goals have been adopted by all UN member states since 2015. And this right now is 2022, right? 7 years later. But all of these goals actually provide a shared blueprint for all of the countries, whether they are developed countries or developing countries, for sustainability. And these goals are also an urgent call for action by all of the countries to be in a global partnership. And these goals recognize that ending poverty and others, and some other scarce of resources must go hand in hand with strategies that could improve health and education, reduce inequality, and spur economic growth, while tackling climate change and working to preserve our land, our earth, and our oceans. Okay. And if you look at these 17 goals, so some of them are related to food, hunger. A lot of them are related to health. Some of them are related to education. Some are related to energy, economy, infrastructure, cities and communities, water-related issues, and justice issues. So it's a really, really broad scope for all these 17 goals put together. And for any discipline, so I'm in landscape architecture, for any discipline, if we can tackle one of the goals, that would be already huge achievement. All right, continue. So talking about park development, we should, retrack back to infrastructure. And we all know that building our public works, such as roads, railways, bridges, are really important for a city to run, function normally. And it's really important to every person, every resident in the city, in the community. But now we also need to realize that parks are also a type of infrastructure. Just as roads, just as railways, as bridges, it's a type of green infrastructure. Green infrastructure is just as important as roads and bridges, which are traditional infrastructure. And whenever we talk about infrastructure, we know that there should be all sorts of values that these infrastructure could provide, could support our society. There's environmental value, social value, health value, economic value. For example, for environmental value, which is something designers, us, a lot of times focus on more, sometimes focus on solely, which is not comprehensive. While we do beautiful designs, we really should pay more attention to social values, health values, and economic values. Environmental values such as parks and green infrastructures can provide a place for children and family to connect with nature, and they can play outdoor together, and could improve the quality of the air that we're bringing in, and provide a lot of vegetation buffers to other development, unsustainable development. Parks can improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, and produce habitats for wildlife. Social benefits, these days we talk a whole lot about it. So parks actually already been considered as a tangible reflection of the quality of life in the community. They provide identity for citizens, and parks are a major factor in the perception of quality of life in a given community. Parks and recreation services are often cited as one of the most important factors in surveys of how livable a community is. Economy-wise, so parks improve the local tax base, as we all know that, and increase property values. Buying a house, buying a property right next to a park versus far away from park, or in a neighborhood there's no park, the value is dramatically different. A very top example would be all these buildings and condos and units around a Central Park in New York City. And as expensive as New York City is, but if a property is right next to the Central Park, the values would be doubled, tripled, and sometimes even 5 times, 10 times more. And parks and recreation could generate money for the local community. For example, a study about Mammoth Cave National Park, which is located in Kentucky. And every year it generates $62 million. So parks not only could have indirect value to property values, but actually to generate money directly. And an ongoing study by the Trust for Public Land shows that over the past decade, voters' approval rates for bond measures to acquire parks and conserve open space actually exceeds 75% of the voter population, which said something. So altogether, the majority of the public views park as an essential priority for the government spending. Health values, I have a designated little chapter that we're going to go over. So right now, I'm not talking a whole lot about it. So now we know that parks as a critical infrastructure, which is really, really important from all aspects to the society. The first topic, I'm going to talk about parks everywhere. So a lot of you might say, what do you mean by that? So we need to look at the background of where we are today. Today, we're in the middle of urbanization. This is not from last year, not from 5 years ago. It's been a long time that our cities, our communities are always being urbanized. So urbanization basically is a process in which cities grow and higher percentage of population would come to the city and live in the city. So this is a definition defined by Population Reference Bureau, but many other definitions are defined a very similar way. If you look at this diagram, 1900, there are only 2 out of 10 people lived in an urban area. 2010, that is 12 years ago, about 50% of the population lived in an urban area. By 2030, it'll be 60%, 2050, 70%. So really majority of people will live in an urban area. And urbanization also, or living in an urban area, will provide us a lot of advantages, conveniences, such as there's more jobs, more job opportunities. And on the contrary, on the other hand, jobs attract more population to the urban areas. And there's better higher education provided versus a non-urban area. And then there's a lot of facilities, cultural entertainment facilities, museums, theaters, concerts, sport facilities. There's a lot of them provided for the citizens and residents. And healthcare usually is a little better. There's more hospital, more medical care, more specialists. The network is broader, provided to people. And then retirement facilities and services usually a little bit better as well in urban area. And energy, and a lot of times there's a stable utility provided to the residents, electricity, gas, and other utilities, and communication infrastructure, high-speed internet. Right now, OSU is helping the rural area to have reliable high-speed internet, but overall, the urban area will give us more stability. Whenever you move to an urban area, you would less worried whether I will have internet, whether I will have Wi-Fi, whether I will have cell phone signals, etc. And some other convenience, commerce, it's more convenient. Shopping, eating out is more. However, all of those convenience, on the flip side, there's a lot of drawback for urbanization as well. And this slide shows there will be a lot of extreme poverty. So in urban area, downtown area, many cities across the world, there are slums, and people have very minimum income or have no income, no proper housing, and so on. And the food security might be a problem. And also because there is a high density of a population, and the human being interferes with the earth, will generate a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. And that's one of the major components that today we have climate change. And there are some other issues as well. And leading to parks, one of the major things, the downside from urbanization is that land scarcity. So meaning that we keep developing the land to support the population, more and more population every year. And the land is getting less and less, scarce and scarce, and the green land is getting scarce and scarce. So I have this hilarious diagram that it's named natural selection. So as you see, that original status of the land is all green, parks, nature, vegetation, and later on it's all developed into buildings, asphalt, concrete. And what is being ironic is that all these buildings are named with the original nature names. For example, this hotel is called the Lake Shore Hotel, and this is called the Stonebridge Mall, and this is called Terrace Homes, Forest Tower, etc., etc. But this is a hilarious image, and that's not what it really means by natural selection. But we should, so between these two results, all of us, we as a landscape architect, should pay special attention that preserve land and try to make sure that we still have green areas and wooded areas, parks for people to use. So talking about land scarcity, so one thing we should do is to try to preserve the land for parks, for green spaces, for recreational spaces, instead of pave them all into concrete and build all tall concrete asphalt buildings. Another thing, so that's something that we all know, preservation, conservation for green spaces. Today, that's not the focus. Here today, I want to bring up the topic that we should we should be creative. Look for places that could be developed into parks. And those places might not be places that people usually think in their, day-to-day mindset. Okay. Next. So the number one places, this is not entirely new. It's been probably the past 10 years, 12 years that people already start to develop green roofs, rooftop area, rooftop parks, rooftop gardens, rooftop green spaces for people to use. And these locations are more proposed everywhere in all the major cities right now. The two pictures I included over here. This is a green roof on top of Gary Comer Youth Center building, located in Chicago. So when Gary Comer Youth Center was built, basically they were brainstorming, what do we do with this roof? Just, put on tar and then, put on whatever roof materials and then call it a regular roof. And they actually find a very meaningful way to use it. And this is truly creative, because on the land, on the elevation 0, on street, we may not have the luxury to have such a big garden, such a big park anymore. What they use this for is to made it a rooftop farm or a rooftop garden, if you will. So they grow crops and vegetables here. And even more amazing is that they made this rooftop garden to be a after-school program. As we all know that, there are some rough neighborhood in every major cities, and so it's for Chicago. And a lot of times the kids after 3 p.m. after school, young kids, they have nowhere to go, and because parents sometimes can't afford all the formal after-school programs, other after-school programs, and kids just running on the streets and may get bad influence from, drug dealers and, criminals, and so all these bad influences. So this after-school program actually get all the kids in the nearby neighborhood, and kids are here kept safe, number one, off the streets, and meanwhile they learn knowledge about plants, they learn knowledge about horticulture, about crops, they learn how to weed, how to water, how to harvest. And actually this green roof provide lots of fresh produce and herbs for the local restaurants to use. So in my mind, this is a sustainable development, not only in a sense of environmental, having environmental values, but also has social values, and have these kids in and protect the kids, and economic values, because they are producing produce for the local restaurants. So it just, every time when I talk about green roof, this is one of the inspirations that in my mind, I always had to bring it up. Myself, so before I joined OSU, had the honor to join OSU, I was a practitioner, as Mike introduced me, and myself actually designed quite a few green roofs and rooftop gardens and parks, especially in highly urbanized area when land is running out. So the green roof, another is railway viaduct retrofitting. Okay, so 20 years ago, 30 years ago, no one would ever think that we could have a linear park on top of a railway station or in the air. It's just unthinkable. But right now, there are examples in many places. The next one is underbridge environment and underground park, which I'm going to talk about one by one. I brought some examples to share with you. Okay, so this is a railway viaduct structure. And many of you probably can recognize this project is called High Line Park, located in Manhattan, New York City. It's a linear park built on top of a retired railway track. And so it was a part of the New York Central Railway. It's a spur, and the portion that was built into a park, it's about 1.5 miles long. So if you look at the picture, the top left corner, that's how it looked. It goes through a very busy part of the city with a lot of noise, unseemly, no good sights, and all these buildings are like a few feet away from this structure. And all the buildings actually blocked their windows off this railway track just to avoid noise, avoid seeing this very utilitarian industrial landscape. And property values nearby are not getting better. And by the time this railway track is being retired, not used anymore, and there is a great nonprofit organization called Friends of Highline Park, they had this great idea. Why not we keep the structure in ground in the city while we change the railway tracks, the top service, into a linear park, which actually became a green corridor for people to walk through. And all of a sudden the building's windows are opening back towards this Highline Park, and property values are raised dramatically, and promote a lot of outdoor walking for people who live in New York City. And many people just stop taking subways, buses, and driving as difficult as it is in New York City. But people would just walk 1.5 miles from one end to the other end, and sometimes they need to connect to a bus, etc. But they just use this park as a exercise opportunity, and it's a super safe on there because it's 100% pedestrian environment. No cars will get on it, and then you have to watch red lights and watch cars, etc. So it's just truly lovely development. And this project was designed, and worth mentioning, is an award-winning landscape architect whose name is James Corner. His office is James Corner Operation Field. So there are more and more other projects like this in the United States and in Europe. And Europe actually had an earlier project, even earlier than Highline Park. Highline Park was actually inspired by a project in Paris, France, and thus today Highline Park. Okay, so this is the park in the air. We're looking for land that is in the air on top of the roof. Next, I want to talk about is for underbridge environment. If we have visited the underbridge environment of a huge bridge, we know that it's dark, it's noisy, it's all concrete, and it could be a location, a harbor for crimes, for homeless, for all these, social issues. This bridge is Zachem Bridge, located in Boston. This is one of the projects that I worked on for 3 years when I was practicing in Boston. The older name was called New Charles River, because this is the Charles River that runs into Boston Harbor. It's used to called New Charles River Basin Post Mainline Park, because in the park there is a water main, a huge water main. It's not the water main concept in front of our residential property, but it's a huge city water main. And also this park includes the underbridge environment. The underbridge environment could be just left out there, just have the city clean it from time to time, but it's not an environment for people to enjoy. So my firm, I was on the team for close to 3 years working on this project. As you see that it really was an unseemly landscape. And after the master plan, as you see here, and this master plan, it's so familiar to me because I've worked on it for years and years. So the green spaces on the two sides of the bridge, Zachem Bridge, and also we included the underbridge environment to get that developed as well. And this is a portion of the underbridge environment. As you see, wherever there's places that can't access to daylight, there will be artificial lighting. And these lighting are designed by actually a sub-consultant of my office, who is a lighting designer, and then designed all these fantastic, beautiful festival lights. They change color, they can be controlled, in a way that different weather, different time, different holidays could change color. So all of these parks connect together. Pedestrian bridges are developed as well. Biking trails are connected from one side of the huge bridge to another. Walking trail, and green, it's connected, trails are connected, and there's other programs such as skateboard, a skating park, etc. work together working with green, and it became a great park. And this project actually won a World Architecture News Landscape Award from a few years ago after it has been constructed, a few years after it's entirely completed. So underbridge environment is something that people start to look into while a busy city is running out of land for parks. And this is absolutely very deserving to have attention, to have designers, planners, and policymakers to examine into this and to make it an environment that people can use. Okay, another type of park, which actually first time I learned about it, it blew my mind, which is underground park. Okay, and this park is again located in New York City. It's called a low-line park. It's funny as it is, but truly it is a low-line park. It used to be a abandoned underground trolley terminal. So a group of people form this company. Their ambition, their vision is to develop this space into a stunning, beautiful underground park. It'll be the world's first subterranean green space. And one of the challenge for underground park is lighting. So if plants need to grow there, they need natural lighting. So at the end of the day, they worked with a designer, lighting designer, engineers. They had a very innovative way to bring the sunlight from above ground all the way into, this is the basement level, underground level, into the underground. And then this sunlight could provide necessary elements for the plants to grow, as you see the pictures over here. And they so this has been tested as a kind of an experiment or a lab for a few years. And then the formal construction was going to start in 2019, and then they started by 2020, and in the middle of the deep pandemic, as we all know. And also there was funding problems, just the whole supply chain, funding, COVID all together. So right now this project construction is put on hold. They're still working really, really hard to get more funding in order to continue to expand the first experiment of the park. I do want to show how they brought in the sunlight from top of the roof. So they underground is below grade, and it's under a building with a 3-4 floors. Basically, they had all these optical solar collection dishes, as you see, there's a photo, and it's like a glass reflective surface, and it'll catch all the sunlight, and then the sunlight will be transferred through these helio tubes, which is fiber optic cable tubes or channels, and the sunlight will eventually be brought to the basement, to the underground, and then that could be cast on plants, hence plants could grow. So this project just absolutely blew my mind for the first time I heard about it. How come people can have an underground park? We all heard underground shopping mall, but underground park, this is truly the first. And I do hope they will continue and then, create a beautiful pilot project for other busy cities that could learn what their lessons and then continue to have more spaces that could provide to people to use, especially busy cities. Okay, so this is the first topic, and this first topic has a broad subtopics, and it's about parks everywhere. Basically, we're looking for creative spaces to create more parks. The next topic I would like to talk about what parks can impact health. Okay, and especially after we just went through the pandemic, COVID years, 2-3 years. And health is such an important topic for all of us, for young, for elderly, for every family. And according to the studies by CDC, creating, improving, and promoting places to be able to be physically active for people can improve individual and community health. And then that'll result in a 25% increase of residents who exercise at least 3 times per week. And to think about, if we have parks nearby every home, people can go out to finish this 3 times of exercise every week. But if you have to drive 20 miles in order to access a park, and chances are people will just say, forget it, I'm not doing that. And also doctors, a lot of times we have these, conditions, we feel dizzy, we feel tired, and doctors would examine us all over the body, and then they couldn't find anything wrong. And eventually the doctor would write a prescription to say, hey, just visit parks 3 times a week, 5 times a week. That actually eventually boosts the patient's health. There's a lot of evidence-based research that show that spending more time in nature can improve people's health, happiness. So health not only include physical health, but also mental health. So happiness, and lead to better decisions of our life, our work. And also a study by Pennsylvania State University showed significant relationships to reductions in stress. So basic parks can lower blood pressure and perceived physical health to the length of a stay and visits to parks. And sometimes some people would just joke, if people feel always tired, can't get up in the morning, etc., and people would joke, parks are actually much cheaper than coffee. So versus drinking 5 cups of coffee before people can wake up. So go to parks more. A quick dose of nature can make people more productive. A nice walk through a city park can do wonders for a work-weary brain and reduce mental fatigue and improve attention. And this especially just important to mention that as well after we're almost through the pandemic, right? And at the first year when COVID started, before the vaccine, we are all so scared. I was scared because we heard all these terrible cases that, people could just die if you ever catch it. And that was before vaccine. And then we had lockdowns and all over the world. And then eventually when the city started to open up a little more, and then even in parks, people are still very cautious. And this is a park called Domino Park in Brooklyn, New York State. And in order to be cautious, they actually draw big circles on the lawn of the park. And each group of people, close family, they can come as a group and they have to stay in the circles in order to ensure social distancing. Now we just kind of laugh at this, right? But really, whether maybe in the future there will be other pandemic, sadly, but we should think about what park, how important park plays the role in our community, in our society, and for people's health. And of course, I think this was from 2 years ago, and I took my students, we even did a little study, to talk about what can we improve, what can we do while designing a park so that that could be more pandemic proof, and presented in a conference. So this is just important topics that we need to think about. So parks are absolutely important. If we have during critical crises like this, if we have parks, have green spaces, have a neighborhood that we can go out, and that'll keep us safe. Without the parks, we are locked in the house, which is extremely bad for our physical and mental health. Here, I'm sharing, what time is it? Oh, I gotta be a little quick. Okay, so here I'm sharing a video that's developed by a nonprofit company. They called Nature RX. So we all know RX is prescribed prescribed medication by doctor. So here's this, it's really presented how nature is important to us. And let's take a look over here.
Do you find yourself longing?
Can you hear the sound?
Yes, I could hear
Okay,
him.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll continue.
The apocalypse? I did. I was looking for a reason to live. Hi. Are you feeling tired, irritable, stressed out? What you might consider nature.
From the people that brought you, getting outside comes prescription strength Nature, a non-harmful medication shown to relieve the crippling symptoms of modern life.
Nature's recommended for humans of all ages, and it's great for pets too.
Nature can reduce cynicism, meaninglessness, anal retentiveness, and murderous rage. In clinical studies, nature is proven to decrease work-induced catatonia.
Nature may cause you to slow down, quit your job, or seriously consider what you're doing with your life.
If you are overly cynical, jaded, or emotionally numb, you may need to increase your dose of nature. If you have trouble being even mildly uncomfortable, nature may not be right for you. Side effects may include spontaneous euphoria, taking yourself less seriously, and being in a good mood for no apparent reason.
So ask your doctor if nature is right for you.
All right, so I love how they put all this, humor together. Again, this is an award-winning comedy series by Nature RX, and then it's just this video. It's a short video. It's a friendly reminder to us, to people who live on the earth, what feels good and what is worth protecting. And behind the humor and they parody. There is good science, and research shows that spending more time in nature improves our health, well-being, and leads to making better decisions. And I love how the video says there will be clickable withdrawal, and nature is not clickable. The side effects, there's other side effects from nature, like confidence boost, remembering you have a body, and you always being in a good mood for no apparent reason. So I just really, really love it in a 30 seconds video. All right, so this is about health, parks, and pandemics. And next topic, I want to talk about technology. Okay, so obviously technology has made a huge impact on every industry, on every discipline for our current society. If we look at this diagram, okay, so 2003, that's when the world population has 6.3 billion, and every person has about less than 0.1 connected device, meaning cell phone in those days. For some of you still remember when the cell phone just came out, it's a giant brick that you put it on your ear, like this big, if you can see me in the picture and on the video. And gradually the cell phone becomes smaller and smaller, has a tiny screen and 9 keys on it. You know, Nokia, if you still remember the brand. And later on, smartphone with a screen. I remember my firm covered me the very first generation of iPhone. I think it was 4-inch big, but at that time it was amazing. Around 2000, year 2000, it was amazing that I have a big screen that I could click using my fingers to push. And nowadays, iPhones are getting bigger and bigger. And also everybody's got iPad, Android pad, a smart watch, and everything in the home is connected on the internet, connected with each other. So 2020, we can see that every person has a 6.58 connected device per person. At 2022, I want to say this number probably 8 or even 10, okay, you know, in the family. Nowadays, even locks, the door locks are connected. It's a connected device. And even a vacuum is a connected device to your cell phone, to the network. So all of these technology, all these breakthroughs, they have made impact in our daily life in all of the industries and disciplines. For park development, there are a few things really worth mentioning. Drones. Okay, so drone is something used in the past, I want to say 5-10 years. People already start to use it, and the drones are getting smaller and smaller, more and more portable, but still being very, very powerful, can do a lot of things. For example, horticultural purposes, it could apply seeds, it could seed metals, and there's park agencies or firms that might be using drones to investigate a land where the land is not humanly accessible by human beings or by cars, or sometimes it's dangerous. Who knows, there's animals and drugs and, you know, wetland that could endanger people's health and people's safety if they go there in person. So drones can be flown over to check that, and drones could inspect buildings and you know, for example, this picture shows. And in design profession and also related to park development field, both public sector and private firms are using drones. For example, once you finish a beautiful park, the construction, people, firms, agencies, owners would like to take beautiful aerial photos by drones so that they can keep it as a record. And this can be taken every year, every season, and used for further study, you know, all the park elements, whether they need to maintain, fixed, etc. And drones can be used for construction process, document the construction process. And with newer technology, newer resolution, etc., drones are being used not only to take a beautiful picture, but also drones can even detect the elevations on the ground and then could generate a topo map. You say if you have square miles and square miles of land, and drone will provide a rough topography map for you so much more conveniently versus sending a survey company. It takes months and months to get the land surveyed. So it's very practical now, and people will use it more and more and more, and then will be used in a more creative way. Another thing that could be used is in park development. Another technology influenced item would be automowers. Our botanic garden, I remember, had a Husqvarna automower from years ago. And the beginning, the automowers are small, can only mow a small limited area, can't mow over very steep terrains. And these days, they better technology and drones at different sizes that could even take care of parks mowing job, and could mow in a fair steep topography as well. And here I just attached a funny picture that animals interacting with the automower. My house backyard, we have a small automower. And I remembered that the first time when we started to use it, our dog just following the automower and keep sniffing the behind of the automower, trying to figure out what is this. It lights up in the evening and then it just goes by itself, and then and what smell is it? So the dog was studying it. It was very, very funny. But anyway, so a lot of times, and we all believe that in the future that automower can do mowing job, and meanwhile the mowers are being designed and developed to have zero emission, and then they are projected to require far less maintenance, and then the internal combustion type of mowers, and then that would require replacement after a few short years. So things like that. So this is something that we should put it in our plan. When we design, we should think about the maintenance as well. All right, next topic would be park program changes, if you will. And here I want to point out it's the decline in youth physical activity. And even before the pandemic, 2019, before that, multiple studies already found that there has been a sharp and a continuing decline in youth sports participation. And meanwhile, there are a lot of steady decline in physical activity by youth. This is connected to technology, if you will. Kids are spending more time in front of the screen, on the cell phone, etc. And there's another institute report shows that even before the restrictions of the pandemic, participation in youth sports declined from 45% in 2008 to 38%. That's a 7% declining just in 10 years. And even kids are still playing a team sport, but a lot of them would quit by age 11. And even more so during the pandemic, 3 in 10 kids would eventually, previously played, say that they're no longer interested in playing the game anymore. So all of these reports and statistics have alarmed youth sports organizations and child health experts alike. And there are a lot of programs being created by children health professionals and park professionals, because they need to partner with park agencies in order to provide the outdoor location for kids to use. So continue to encourage, promote youth sports. That's one thing, but there are some other, I thought, really innovative, creative way to get kids outside the house, such as here, there's a pumpkin smashing park where people can bring their Halloween pumpkins and go there and then just smash it over there. And kids, sometimes they are not interested in traditional sports anymore, and then they might go there and participate in this activity. And this is a temporary pop-up park, basically. So people would put up these paper tubes and make it a little instructor teepees and tents. That'll and also give kids a hands-on opportunity for themselves to create something to enjoy. And then this is something, a little program that would attract kids to come out. So overall, this is a trend. But as park professionals, design professional, we should keep this in mind, understand this well, and create special programs that could promote more outdoor activities for kids. Last topic. Okay, last topic. I want to talk about renewable energy. Okay, so I'm not an electrician or electrical engineer, but topics related to this fascinates me so much. And we know that some forward-looking parks and cities, they start to utilize renewable energy. As you see that, traditional, commonly seen renewable energy like solar, like wind, we see this is in Magic Kingdom, Disney, that they have a solar field and made it a Mickey head as they image as the icon. And this is a type of a solar device, solar photovoltaic device that could actually keep tracking the sun direction. So it's always rotating, facing the sun so that it could be maximized in the efficiency. And the even newer renewable energies, and a lot of institutions, labs, and companies are starting to test and utilize to see how they're going to work in a park setting. That would be biomass. Biomass, as we know that it's, the energy is coming from plants, residues, agriculture related, and animal waste, etc. I came across a very interesting experiment from UK that this nonprofit company that they actually use dog poop to light the lights in the park. So the idea here is, I love this series of diagrams. So people would walk dogs in the park, right? And the dogs would do their business there. So the owners will pick up, they poop and deposit into a special station in there. And then the owners will turn the handle on the station. And then this turning will create heating and mixing. And eventually the pool will give off biomethane. Okay, and then this gas will be stored in a little tank nearby, and there will be a timer. And once timer or sensor, once they the sky is dark, the methane will be released, and then that'll light the lamps in the park. I thought this is extremely interesting. And then it's a very small scale, and then it provides a very important function for the park, which is lighting in the evening. All right, so that's all I would like to go over. And all of these, this is not an exhaustive list about the park development trend, but a few things that just intrigued me in the very, very recent years, recent months, etc. So I would like to share all of that with you. If you have questions, feel free to ask me.
Thank you, Qing, so much. I'm looking in the chat feature. I don't see questions, but I'm asking Donna to look as well to make sure I'm not overseeing any questions before I jump in. Donna, do you see anything that I'm overlooking, or I don't? Let me ask you, Qing, while we're waiting. So I preface this talk by saying I'm ecstatic that you have an extension appointment, but there's just one of you. What needs are out there that have maybe surprised you, and be in a perfect world, if we could, have 10 Professor Luos that could be even better met for the state of Oklahoma in terms of the consumers. What are they hungry for, so to speak, from landscape architects and related professionals?
So that's a great topic, Mike. So the academic practice versus extension education the other day I was discussing this with some professionals. The students I'm teaching, we're training the students to be a professional, and they're going to work in the professional company firm and design projects for clients, for owners. And a lot of times, because it's a business, it's a design business, so a lot of times it is need to be supported by money. A lot of times it's a big money. Okay. We all know that construction materials are so expensive today. And meanwhile, I also do extension education. And I realized that if I just take all the things I teach my students and teach the community, it's not accepted by the community, because community would need something very tangible, very practical, still evidence-based, still science-based, but they need something knowledge they could implement something immediately for their home, for their property. Really, for example, I've been giving presentations about rain barrel installation, and I'm telling the community why I select the location for my rain barrel, and there are so many ways to connect the rain barrels to the downspouts. And yet I research, I found the one that I think it has the least surgery, at least hassle, so that I can connect the rain barrel to the downspouts. And community groups are extremely interested in information like this, because they want to learn this for 1 hour lecture. They want to go home and implement this practice. If I'm even introducing what product that I use and how it works, etc. And then community would even ask, oh, can you send me the link where you bought your diverter, etc. So if I take this whole thing and teach my students will not have the experience to, because they are all 20 something, 19, 18, 21. They didn't have the experience to enjoy this yet, or have a home to implement this yet. Their mind is at a flashy, beautiful concept, great vision. Everybody wants to be the father of landscape architecture profession, Mr. Olmsted. Everybody want to reach to that level, to be a great designer, #1 in the world. But teaching communities are very different. But back to your question, students, when they graduated, and even older years when I graduated, we often go work for a firm, and then the firm is hired by various clients, private sector clients, homeowners, landowners, and public clients like city agencies, state agencies. We're hired to design all sorts of parks, campuses. OSU would be a type of public agency, if you will. We hire landscape architects to design part of our campuses. I'm sorry, I'm rambling and walking around. I don't know even answer your question, but.
No, you're doing fine. I just, I didn't give you any warning on that one. So that's just off the top of my head. Thank you. Hey, by the way, our colleague Connie Scothorn, another award-winning landscape architect, just wrote, and this was on my mind too. Connie's like, Qing, where can we get information about the poo lighting? And I love what Connie says as a dog owner. She knows there's enough poo out there to light up the city.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm happy to send you the information that I have. But if we really go into biomass energy, we probably need to work with engineers in order to get to all the details about it, I think.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to jump on Google and look this up, but thank you.
Yes.
Another one before I forget, that just jumped on. By the way, they just said, great talk, Professor Luo. Can she speak about how parks work to attract international tourists and the economic impact this brings? The international tourism is an export of services. I know that I've visited many parks in the United States and around the world and often see foreign visitors. I'm trying to see if that's the end of the comment.
Absolutely. So, every tourist bureau of the city or the state agency, and for sure, part of it, if they have a long-term plan, for sure, part of it is talking about parks, probably. Right now it's, we're just through pandemic, but before pandemic, every major parks like Central Park that was designed by Mr. Olmsted, the father of modern landscape architecture profession, that attracted tons of international tourists from outside New York City. Some other great parks in great cities, the Millennium Park in Chicago, they would attract tons of people from all over the world, because all of these parks are designated as a landmark of the city. So if people visit this city, not only they're going to visit that landmark building, that landmark museum, they're going to also come to this landmark park as well. Our local parks, OKC parks, the Myriad Garden, that's a local landmark, and lots of people from outside Oklahoma would visit it. The Scissortail, the park, gathering place in Tulsa, attract tons of people from outside town, if not international level. So, and all of these are part of green infrastructure, the city infrastructure network, but also for sure is a part of the tourism as well. And then all of these attractions would bring in people, and bringing people means economic growth in a short summary.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Anthony, if you want to hear more, you're welcome to unmute yourself and jump in if you'd like, or anybody else for that moment, for that matter, and we can talk. I'm feeling daring today that we won't get Zoom bombed. And so,
Anthony, I've read studies and reports about, very detailed, fascinating reports that how a park, how much money, how much economic growth a park can bring in. And just looking at the chart and everything, it's fascinating to see that. And then they can just assign a dollar amount to that. If you're interested, I'm happy to send that to you sometime later.
Please do. And I used to work at Oklahoma State University for about 8 years. Now I'm with the University of Mississippi and knew Dr. Schnelly from there. And but I work in international trade assistance, and a lot of people don't realize international tourism is, of course, exporting services. And so what I try to do is focus on a lot of those, help our stakeholders. Now I'm in Mississippi, but understand that that international tourism is as much an export as a cargo container going out. So there's a lot of opportunities in your experience in the Northeast and around the world. I've visited Central Park and many places in Europe and around the world where I always see such a huge gathering of people. So thank you. I just wanted to mention that, and I enjoyed the talk.
Thank you so much. That's really cool what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Anyone else would like to jump on, either via written note, or even better, just jump on like Anthony just did? Anyone else? I might just say, for those of you that are new to the Shackelford lecture series, make sure you go back and look at our YouTubes. Not only do we have one from Anthony Canvas, but we have another one in addition to what Professor Luo taught us about green roofs. We also have some thoughts from Michigan State University. So, some night you can't sleep, or you've got a little bit of free time, please go back and look at the lectures that you missed live, because we have almost 22 of them on YouTube now. So we're very proud of that. They're there, for your access 24/7. But more importantly, though, what's on your mind, though, to ask Qing while we have her live today? Anybody else? Qing, you've talked a lot about young people, and obviously you mentioned the fact that you have 18, 19, 20-year-olds. What are you seeing that's exciting them, exciting the young people that you maybe didn't anticipate, or even as a parent? What does your daughter come home and excite her mom and dad about that gives you hope for the future going on beyond our time?
Yeah,
it's a big question.
One simple example. So my daughter is 9. I have a very young kid. So she does all the subjects amazingly, all the math, language, art, and everything. But every time when I ask her which class is her favorite. She always say PE because she can move around. She can, she can play games with friends, and, that just energizes her. And whenever we go outdoor in botanic garden, we have a wonderful botanic garden here. We go to the Boomer Lake, go to the playground, or bike around the lake, and appears that she is happier. And if she's on the screen, she also does a lot of screen time as all the other kids. So I'm very just, be watchful about that. But whenever she's on the screen and all that, so if I say, hey, stop the screen and whatever, and staying on the screen for a while, that'll make her cranky, obviously. And while we have all these amazing outdoor spaces, the trail, Lake McMurtry, Carl Blackwell Trail, the lakes, and whenever we have opportunities to be outdoor, I think it's so important for next generation's health, ourselves included, of course. Sure. Yes. Yeah. So it's obvious to me, the mood, what she likes, when she will become cranky.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. And who else would like to jump in? We have a little bit of time. Don't be shy.
And everybody feel free to contact us if you have further questions to discuss, or you need any information. I'm happy to supply that after this live presentation.
Oh, thank you, Jane. That's very generous of you. They're probably like me, we have to digest what you said today. We'll go back and watch your YouTube here in a couple of weeks. By the way, it should be ready, and we'll probably have questions, and we'll probably pepper you with email sometime in December. But
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of topics today I went over, there are things like solar energy, biomass energy, things like that. I would like even dive a little deeper, not only being a designer, and learn some engineering, in-depth knowledge, so that could help my future design, help my future teaching, things like that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we definitely need to have you back for a part 2 lecture, whether it's through this series or through Oklahoma Nursery and Landscape Association. Seeing Connie Scothorn and I were talking native plants just a few weeks ago in Shawnee, and there's so much to do in so little time. But I'm really grateful for your efforts and your preparation today. Stephanie just mentioned thank you, Qing, and she enjoyed your webinar and past webinars. Thank you, Stephanie, for that.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are so kind.
So I think if there's no other comments, we might wrap it up today. And like I said, we will take you up on your offer, stay in touch with you via email a later time. And
absolutely, anytime. And in the future, if you want me to talk about anything, any topics, just let me know anytime, Mike.
Will do. I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all in December for our final webinar for this year.
All right, everybody, you will have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, take care, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, Mike.
Bye-bye.